Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Unbelievers, here to discuss Lord Fowl's Bane. I'm Cams, the Unbeliever, joined as always by...
Barge, the Unbeliever.
Two unbelievers chatting about our favourite book. Is it your favourite book, Barge?
Well, at the moment it's the only non-fiction book that I'm reading, so it is, just by simple kind of, being the only one. So that's my KG answer.
Fair enough.
But no, I'm enjoying this.
So, we're getting into the action scenes now. It's starting to build up as we head into Treacher's Gorge, chapter 21. So we've just left Man Home, which is the home of the Ramen, on the plains of Ra, and we're off on a quest northward across the plains.
Yeah, and they set off and they're all in a good mood and the going is good. And, in a couple of days, they get to an area due south of Mount Thunder. So that's when kind of, things start to shift a little bit, and that initial optimism and not encountering any enemies or sign of enemies, blah, 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 that begins to change.
Yeah, so these pages here are pages where I found myself looking at the map at the front of the book. Did you do that?
I considered it, but then I didn't.
So it's... Yeah, there is a small map here. There is, of course, a big atlas, which I have on the shelf as well, which I ordered off an American, was it eBay? I can't even remember. But it was imported from the US. A delightful book that maps the different books in the series and gives you the journeys and the paths and stuff. But for this chapter here, I only looked at the beginning of the book, the little map here, and I found it quite helpful. So, tell me if I'm wrong here. Treacher's Gorge, looking at the map, reminds me of the place that Foam Follower said the Giants of Sea Reach set up as a kind of waypoint where they would then travel on the Soulseas River to get to Revelstone. Does that ring any bells?
Well, I do remember... some talk about a point which was impassable, and so the boats had to be moored somewhere.
Yeah.
And that sounds like Treacher's Gorge.
Yeah, because at that point the river goes through the gorge. So we've got the Soulseas River, which is the river that Foam Follower and Covenant travelled along on their way to Revelstone. So that goes through Treacher's Gorge, and before that it joins with the Black River as well. So at that point, what do they call that? A confluence, is it? Where two rivers come together?
Yeah.
And then it goes into Treacher's Gorge and goes through it, and then we get this explanation in the chapter where it says what happens to the river is that it goes through the White Warrens and the depths of Mount Thunder, and it comes out on the lower land beyond Landsdrop, and that's where it becomes the Defile's Course and the Great Swamp and the Shattered Hills, and that's the bit I think that the Giants talked about not being able to traverse.
I see.
So that just gives you an idea of the geography and of Mount Thunder itself, how it's an important landmark in the land. It's where the rivers get corrupted as they go through the White Warrens, and it talks about Landsdrop, which we'll get to in a bit.
Right, and that's, yeah.
So if you're listening to this without having read the chapter, then I recommend that you use the map here just to get an idea of the geography as you're reading these first few pages. So the land begins to change. It starts to become more barren, and scrub grass and stunted trees, and a few scattered aliantha took only slight hold on the uncompromising waste, so it's starting to become a much more difficult journey for them. And then we get some history. Moram is giving Covenant some of the land's history. It's more like geography, really. Just explaining to him about Mount Thunder and about Fowl's Creche and the upper land and the lower land.
And the battles that had been fought.
The battles,
and, and then there's an interesting little kind of image where the land gives the impression that all of Beric's victory was an illusion, that all his earth friendship and his staff of law and his lineage of lords, his mighty works and the works of his descendants amounted to so much scrub grass and charred rock and dust, that the true history of the land was written here in the bare topsoil and stone, which lay like a litter of graves from the plains of Ra to Mount Thunder, from Andalane to Landsdrop.
Interesting, I've highlighted that exact paragraph as well. It's quite a powerful image.
It is, huh? And it says a lot about the scene that they encounter on the landscape.
And it's bothering Foam Follower.
He's babbling.
Yeah.
And, I mean, everybody's kind of... And that's unusual.
It is.
And I guess, I mean, what's happening here is a continuity of maybe his injuries and all the, the hammering he took in battles and his moods and everything just swinging. And so he's like losing it. He's babbling at the moment and,
Well, remember how he was affected quite badly when they discovered the dead Wayne hymn?
Yeah.
So I think the corruption of the land is really getting to him, and it becomes more stark as we get into this part of the land.
And then Thomas Covenant asks Moram to tell him about the Great Cliff and the story of Landsdrop.
Yeah.
That sounds quite heavy.
It does.
So what happened? There were these massive banes that were buried under Mount Thunder's roots, and the earth heaved with revulsion, and that basically caused the part of the land to drop away dramatically, like.
Yeah.
And the other part to reach upwards.
Yeah, it's described as a cataclysm, and the earth heaved with revulsion at the evils it was forced to contain. And the force of that dismay broke the upper land from the lower, lifted it toward the sky. Although it says that there is talk, unfounded even in the oldest legends. So this is just speculation at this point.
Whatever it is, I mean, it's quite a dramatic kind of scenery. And at some stage, Thomas Covenant can't quite take himself to go and look over the edge, huh?
Yeah.
Although everyone else is looking.
Although he does have vertigo.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
And then, so it says that they're travelling for 4 days. This is at the top of my page. It says, by the 4th day from Rome's Edge Ford, Covenant felt that he was drowning in giantish talk. So the giant's just been prattling away all the time, telling stories and singing songs before his mood starts to sour. But they travel, it's quite a big distance, and it's covered in very few pages. So, he's given us 4 days of travel in a couple of pages before we get to when the weather turns. And that's where
that's rough.
We get some incredible descriptive writing here. It's basically an evil storm that Drool has sent their way, and it's just the way it's written.
Yeah, I know.
2 full days they're going through it. It says they felt themselves crumbling under the onslaught of the rain, but they knew neither day nor night, knew nothing but one continuous pummeling, dark, savage, implacable storm. Sounds brutal, man. It sounds like going across the Yorkshire moors when I was in the army. This is what I'm telling you when I used to use fantasy as a means of enduring army exercises when I was a young soldier. This is what I'm talking about. I would always imagine I'm on some kind of quest just like this, although this, to be fair, sounds a lot worse.
Yeah. Visibility poor. 2 days.
2 days, yeah, imagine. With no rest, well, they were stopping just to barely heat up some food with the Lily Anrill, following Prothal's blue flame that he's created with his staff to keep them on the path. And it says the struggle went on, prolonged itself far beyond the point where it felt unendurable. In time, endurance itself became abstract, a mere concept, too impalpable to carry conviction. Endurance itself became abstract, eh? I like that.
Yeah, sounds like almost like a mystical state.
Mm.
And then, finally, they passed whatever boundary it was, and as abruptly as it started, the storm blows over them.
Yeah. So it says a bit later that they're going to go into Treacher's Gorge while Drool is distracted with his armies because he doesn't know where they are. But then if Drool's sending magical storms at them, he must have an idea where they are.
That's a good point, because later on, I mean, Prothal's whole plan is based on thinking that Drool doesn't know where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And the element of surprise.
So maybe the storm, I don't know.
Self-activated storm.
Who knows, man? But yeah, it says here, Drool storm for us, but he's mistaken. Main force passes west, take heart, augurs for us. So this is what Moram shouts at them in the storm. So I guess maybe Drool just got lucky that the storm hit them at all. Maybe it's so big that it was aimed at somewhere else, but it still hit them because it was so big. But because the force is passing west, that means that Drool doesn't know precisely where they are.
And also, I mean, here one is assuming that Drool is actually competent.
Yeah.
That's not been established, really.
No, I feel like he's like a kid playing with toys.
So, like, he's just like pressing buttons and seeing what this does, what that does, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, so then there's not going to be precision and precise targeting and all that.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But yeah, so they pass through the boundary of the storm and it stops all of a sudden and the sun comes out. And then they see, for the first time, Mount Thunder, Graven Threndor, peak of the Fire Lions.
Wow, huh? 12,000 feet it rises.
Yeah.
Over the defiles course, of course, so over the lower bit of land.
Yeah.
So not necessarily over where they are standing.
Right.
But it's still taller than Kevin's watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben Nevis is 4,400 feet. That's the highest mountain in Scotland. Everest, 29,000 feet. So there's an idea.
And Mariana's Trench is even deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's deeper than Everest is high.
Aye.
So yeah, there they are. What a place.
Yeah. So it's an overwhelming sight, I guess. So they've got 10 leagues to travel, which is what, about 30 miles, is it? As I recall.
I think so.
And they're heading towards it. And then we get this little bit that I've underlined here where there the quest for the Staff of Law hoped to regain the future of the land. And there Thomas Covenant sought release from the impossibility of his dreams.
Yeah. And there Beric Halfhand had found his great revelation.
There's the earth power and the earth friendship, as the words that they use when he pledges allegiance to the land, which then brings down the fire lions to defeat the enemy. This was long before the desecration of Lord Kevin. So, yeah, they start to feel a bit of levity amongst the party, and they end up laughing, as if recoiling from the strain of the past 2 days. But what stands out here for me is that Foam Follower is not laughing. And that's not like him at all, is it?
Yeah. And he's singing a sad song instead.
About the unhomed. So it's really getting to him.
Yeah.
And it comes out later on in a bit, which we'll get to.
Also, I guess the whole thing of if Drool succeeds, then effectively this new hope of getting back home, which has been discovered, that's then not going to be pursuable.
And looking at the map, the Giants of Sea Reach, which is where they settled in the land, is actually on the coast, just beyond this lower part of the land. So it's kind of getting close to where the Giants settled, the closer they get to Mount Thunder. So it's maybe bringing that closer to him in his mind, that idea of home, just in geographical terms.
Yeah, I mean, and with all the pressure, he's certainly cracking up and these things, yeah.
So it becomes quite treacherous as they go through the foothills of Mount Thunder and start to climb. It becomes very rocky and difficult terrain. And they're using the cords and the ramming to help them pick out paths. The horses are struggling with it.
Everyone's exhausted. I mean, Prothol himself appears totally spent.
Yeah.
And then they hear drums.
Yeah. It doesn't bode well, does it?
I mean, that like coming from inside the mountain, they can hear the drumming, and it follows them for a while, and that must be pretty unnerving when you're exhausted and what, handful of you against hordes and hordes and hordes of the underworld.
Yeah. So they're climbing, and they reach a point where they take a break, and Moram takes Covenant off to one side, leads them up a gully, and as they go up the gully, the view opens up before his eyes, and they get a view of the hills of Andalane. And it's a really nice moment for Covenant. He gets to see the beauty of the land from up above. And it's something I can relate to just from going in the mountains locally here on Arran. Those moments when you're climbing and you're absolutely exhausted, and then all of a sudden there's the view. It's just like, just appears so fast and it takes your breath away. That's what I feel here. Priceless Andalane, the beauty of life. Yes, this is the heart of the land. He stood reverently as if he felt himself to be in an august presence. And Covenant said, "So you brought me up here to convince me that this is worth fighting for."
Pretty astute of him, huh?
Yeah.
I mean...
But I don't think it's a bad move on Moram's part.
Well, I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Gets him to pledge his allegiance. But,
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to do any more killing, he says.
That's
so what are
right.
we going to do?
Yeah, I'm not going to do any more killing. And he talks of peace. That's a challenging situation to be in. And at this point, they've yet to see the hordes.
And he talks of my peace.
Yeah, he does. And then Moram responds, "Your peace." And he said, "Well, you must pardon me. In times of trouble, some lords behave strangely."
Yeah, and then it's left at that, huh?
Yeah, but Covenant works out what he's talking about. He's referring to the desecration and to Lord Kevin, whose passion led him to enact the desecration. And it says, did the Lord believe himself capable of that kind of despair? Talking about Moram. So yeah, it goes over Covenants, all the characters that have come into his life during his time in the land. Just reminding himself of his bargain.
He's always in some kind of growing dilemma, huh? Do or don't do.
Yeah.
I guess that's life. You're always faced with decisions, and you seemingly come to the resolution of one, and then you find yourself in another.
Ringthane's choice.
Yeah, but I mean, now he's got another one. Or his perpetual choice, just in, different aspects.
But yeah, earlier on when it referred back to the Mount Thunder being the source of his release from the impossibility of his dreams, does that require action on his part or inaction?
It seems to suggest action, because at one stage he's resigned to go in and I don't know, die or find his way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a big question for him, Well, one way or the other, however he frames it, but to find out whether he is dreaming or not. Because he's so far assuming that he is.
Yeah. But he also feels that he's a puppet in Lord Phil's hands, and that he's just being led along this merry path to their doom, I guess.
Yeah, and he has a sense that Fowl does it just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So
just playing with him. So then they get into the gorge. They have to leave the horses behind.
And it's loud.
It's loud, yeah. So they can no longer hear the drums because the noise of the water is just so loud. It's written really well. Descriptive writing about the gorge and the rushing water, and the sun hung near the horizon like a ball of blood in the leaden sky. Wow. So then they're alerted. Foam followers strangled Howl.
This is why he's losing it.
Yeah.
Or he's lost it, in fact.
Yeah, he has, and the Bloodguard are clinging to his arms, and he's battering them against the sides of the rift, hissing rapaciously, "Release me, release, I want them." So at this point, we don't know what he's seen, but it's something that's made him react in this way.
Yeah. I want them as if he wished to leap down into the gorge.
Yeah. So we don't yet know what that is. But Prothal's worried, and he goes up to him and asks him, "Do you rave?"
Yeah, and Foamfaller's just like, I don't know, picks him up and
pins him against the wall. Do you accuse me? So this was always a source of much mirth to us when we were in the early 90s.
Do you rave?
Do you rave, yeah, because we were all quite anti-rave at that time.
I see. I didn't get what was meant over here until a little bit later on.
Ah, right, okay.
Effectively, have you been taken over by a raver?
Exactly,
isn't it? Yeah.
So there's a bit later where Tuvor says, no raver has the might to master a giant.
Yeah.
So that's where it was revealed to you what this was referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it provokes him so much that he lifts the High Lord, and normally he's nothing but like respect for all of this and that of the land, huh?
To a fault.
And for him to just like he totally in his whatever shadow side psychosis state. Yeah.
Yeah. So it keeps going. We still don't get the reveal. First Mark Tuvor said clearly a raver and one of the Series giants. Impossible.
Well, that's when Tuvor says it's impossible, and I guess diffuses attention. It's impossible for a raver to take hold of a giant. And then immediately he starts coughing, Foam Follower. And then his attention is taken up with that, and so he lowers Prothol and then collapses backwards, falling with a thud against the opposite wall. And then he emits like a low chuckle, like the glee of hysteria.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Thomas Covenant kind of whatever makes his way over to the edge and looks down, and then he sees what Foam Follower had seen.
Yeah, so the drums, the unheard drums, to the beat of the unheard drums, that's a nice little detail actually. The authors remembered that we can't hear the drums anymore, but they're still there. And out marches an army of cave wights from Mount Thunder. And it just keeps going and going and going with a wedge
captained by a wedge of Urviles.
Yeah, so it's all the evil beasts and Lord Foul's army, I guess. Or is it Drool's army? Or is it both? Does it really matter?
Thousands had already left their white warrens, and behind them the files continued as if Mount Thunder was spewing all the hordes of its inhabiting vermin onto the undefended earth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, numbers.
Yeah, I think it says later on there's only 29 of them.
Right.
Against these thousands.
I guess 29 and not Foam Follower, because he stays outside, so maybe 30, but still.
Yeah. And the cords have stayed behind with the horses.
Right.
So they've only got Lithe with them from the ramming. So that's what Foam Follower saw that set him off, and he wanted to jump down and kill them all. He was enraged. Because remember when he was fighting at Soaring Woodhelve and he became a bit like a berserker?
Yeah.
He lost his mind and the red mist came down.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening here. And the Lords, or Prothol in particular, is trying to hold him back and prevent him from doing that.
Yeah. They're losing their patience a little bit with him as well. Later on, I mean, he gets snapped at.
Foam Follower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so he's in a state. Well, and then they eat and rest a little bit.
Yeah, then we get an explanation of Treacher's Gorge from Moram. And he mentions that the first ward which tells of this place is easily understood. It was formed for the watch and concealment of the betrayers. For here at Treacher's Gorge, Lord Fowl the Despiser revealed his true self to High Lord Kevin. Here was struck the first blow of the open war, which ended in the ritual of desecration. So if you remember back, Lord Fowl had wormed his way into the Council of Lords as a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And Kevin trusted him right up until this point where he reveals himself. Yeah, it says, before that time Kevin Landwaster doubted Lord Fowl without knowing why, for the Despiser had enacted no ill which Kevin could discover, and he showed trust for Lord Fowl out of shame for his unworthy doubt.
And so he sends his, trusted pals and managers to go along.
Yeah, Kevin doesn't go himself, does he?
He doesn't.
He sends his most trusted old lords to this part of Mount Thunder, and that's where the treachery was revealed, and they were ambushed by Urviles and slaughtered, and that's when the war began, which led to the ritual of desecration. So the army of Lord Fowl marches from here all the way across the land to Trothgard, is it? Or Curash Plenithor, it says, which is the old name of Trothgard. So that's quite close to Revelstone. So just flicking again to the map. So yeah, they've basically travelled all the way across the land from Treacher's Gorge, laying waste, I suppose. Would they have crossed Andalane? I wonder. Because the Urviles went into Andalane, didn't they? For the spring celebration.
Right.
So I'm just wondering whether the evil army would be able to go into Andalane.
For any length of time, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they can certainly go in and out, maybe.
Yeah. So that'll be why this part of the land is called Treacher's Gorge, because of the treachery that went down there when the old lords were slain at the beginning of the war.
Yeah, so where are they now? They're on this kind of ledge type thing. The path is too narrow for the horses. They've seen the numbers of the enemy. There's this river that's rushing by loudly, and they know they've got to go inside.
Yeah. Yeah, that must be pretty scary.
But here, Prothol is convinced that Drool doesn't know where they are.
Yeah, yeah.
We must take this chance to enter while Drool's attention is still with his army, before he can perceive that we are not where he thinks us to be.
Yeah. So the lords have an advantage of some sort?
Or so they think.
Yeah, how does he know?
Well, I guess one of them is a seer, so maybe they've been having consultations, and I guess Prothol has some, I don't know, for all his years and frailty, maybe some psychic abilities too.
Aye. So there's a bit here where it talks of the giants returning home, and it says, this is where Tuvor said that no raver has the might to master a giant, and Covenant said, but something is hurting him. He doesn't believe those omens. He thinks Drool or something is going to prevent the giants from going home. And Moram's reply was so soft that Covenant was forced to read it on his crooked lips. So do I. Shit.
Right. Yeah,
Foam follower.
Well, it's not just foam follower, but I mean, basically the statement is that he also thinks Drool is going to win.
I suppose that's the subtext, isn't it?
So morale is kind of what? They're shouting, yeah, we're behind you, but, morale is kind of, I don't know, it can't be high anyway.
No, but this is what courage is, I suppose, that you carry on with your quest, even when morale is low.
And the odds seemingly utterly overwhelming.
Utterly, yes.
I mean, you know, there has to be a boundary line somewhere between courage and foolhardiness.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know. What is it? Rode the 600.
Don't know that one.
No, the what's the name of the poem? It was the one set in the Crimea, the Charge of the Light Brigade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a common meme. There's 300 Spartans. How many of them were there?
Of the Light Brigade?
No, the Spartans. That was another example of a small number of soldiers. And then the formation of the SAS as well. That was an insanely small squad that went in against the odds and wreaked havoc.
Oh, but the Light Brigade got utterly slaughtered.
Oh, I see. Right. Oh,
yeah,
that's right, right.
Cannon fodder. Utterly. I mean, if ever cannon fodder was coined for anything, it was coined for that.
Right. Okay. So that's the opposite then of the SAS and the Spartans.
Yeah, it would have been the SAS mowing them down.
Aye.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe that's why, I don't know, the British establishment seems to hate the Russians so much. Long memories.
Of the Crimea?
Who knows? I mean, yeah, but seem to be grudges that are born still today, in some way.
'Twas ever thus.
So now they determined to go into the catacombs, knowing the possible peril and having seen the hordes of enemy. And, yeah, foam follower. That's where he comes out with a little bit of humour. He says, look, I'm staying behind. After all, these catacombs are not giant-sized.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, the High Lord stops them all and says, you've all done well. There'll be no shame if any of you decide to go no further. So Covenant says that he felt intuitively sure that he had no choice, that his dream would only release him by means of the staff of law or by death. So as if he's going to turn back now anyway, you know.
Exactly.
And Lithe goes as well. So it's only the giant who stays behind, and he has good reason. And he's also going to serve as a lookout.
And he's kind of still being a bit hard on himself and things. And that's when Moram snaps at him. When he says, I've been too quick to hate, I've become like what I abhor.
Yep.
And then he says, come on, have some respect for the truth. You are a foam follower.
Yeah. That's quite an emotional scene, that. Rock brother to men of the land, that name cannot be taken from you.
Yeah.
The Covenant had heard no self-pity in the giant's words, only recognition and sorrow.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's really down then. I mean, really, really down.
Yeah, so that's where we end, as they descend into Treacher's Gorge to make their way inside Mount Thunder. Just really ramping up now.
Yeah, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Now, where are those cave white armies going? What's their goal? If this little party's going into Mount Thunder to face Drool sent an army out for what?
Well, I think Prothol probably thinks that he's sending it to where he thinks they are.
It's an army of thousands to take on 29, 30.
Yeah, 30, yeah.
A show of strength. Make them despair before they even start.
Or maybe a sense that they're actually up against something if you take, superpowers into consideration and the unpredictability of the white gold.
Ah.
And after all, that's something that, I don't know, does Drool covet the ring?
I think Drool covets power, and the ring represents power. I think he even would go behind Lord Phil's back if he could. We don't know that he could do that, but
yeah. But he was kind of stomping his feet until he got given the staff to play with, huh?
yeah. And we still don't know if he has the other stone. It's been alluded to a couple of times.
Yeah. Or really what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's just a Bane that's hidden under Mount Thunder.
Oh, one of the many.
One of the many, yeah. The White Warrens. Whence come the Cave Whites and the Urviles? Dark place. But Covenant's been to Kiriel Threndor before. That's where he arrived when he was summoned.
Oh, before he found himself on Kevin's watch.
Yeah. So Kiriel Threndor is the heart of thunder. Graven Threndor is Mount Thunder.
So that's where he found himself when he first had that interaction with Fowl and Drool.
No, only with Drool, I think.
But Fowl was present at the scene, or came onto the scene.
Yeah, I think I'm not entirely clear about the movement there. There was a scene where the mist came down and they were in fog, and then they were on Kevin's watch. So there's some magical transportation going on, which his summoning was as well. It was a magical transportation of epic proportions across worlds.
And why him?
White gold.
But there would be many people with white gold.
Leprosy.
But they don't even know what leprosy is.
No, but they know what corruption is. And leprosy is a form of corruption. I'm just spitballing here. This is not facts. I'm spitting from earned knowledge.
I see.
And the creator, well, if it was the creator, the beggar who was in Covenant's world, he gave him back his ring after Covenant tried to give it away.
Yeah. So is this then also maybe an option on opportunity for some form of redemption from the corruption of leprosy for Thomas Covenant?
Possibility, yes, I would say that. I think this, if it's a dream sequence, could be seen as Covenant's battling his own corruption or despite, with a possibility of redemption at the end, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay, if it's one of those, like, some of those movies where you go into coma and you're into an alternative reality.
Yeah.
Jacob's Ladder.
Oh.
Yeah. Right, okay,
Yeah.
right.
That's a really good example. That film gives me the chills.
Yeah, I know, huh?
Yeah.
Especially since, like, you know... Okay, here's a spoiler, guys. Especially since they were dead all along. And it's effectively it's his last kind of dying moment. Huh?
It's like Last Temptation of Christ as well.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. Also chills. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Plus, of course, the Peter Gabriel soundtrack, which is absolutely awesome. Yeah.
And the accompanying one, the sources, passion sources.
Yeah. So good.
Right, so
there
we're going to enter the darkness next week.
Yeah, I'm really quite excited for this.
What is the chapter called?
The Catacombs of Mount Thunder.
Descriptive enough. But what's in them? What is in them?
Find out next week.
Yeah, I'll find out too, because I ain't read ahead.
I have, and I've forgotten.
Yeah, right, okay. Even though you've read it a squillion times, huh? Yeah, right.
Okay, thanks for listening, folks.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.